Today at ShopTap.com we talk about TTS brakes on MQB and Mark 7 models. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about TTS brake upgrade. For some vehicles you would consider this a larger brake kit. For some vehicles you would just call it a caliper upgrade. The major difference on this kit versus the factory stuff you would find on a lot of MQB or Mark 7 models would be that these calipers are 4-piston fixed calipers as opposed to sliding. Now we're comparing a 4-piston caliper to the single piston caliper that comes on the vehicle. Now this is the smaller version that came on our Alltrack, but we just want to show you for comparison how sliding calipers work versus a fixed caliper. So on a sliding caliper, you have one piston. This piston pushes out and the brake pads would be on either side, inner and outer. This would slide on these pins and move in and out as you're hitting the brakes. Now, one of these pads is always going to be kind of dragging and is going to contact the rotor first, which is generally why one pad generally will wear faster than the other. You also obviously have one piston, one place that it's pressing onto the pads. With our fixed one, part of the reason why this can be lighter on the fixed one is because there's less moving parts involved. Now, what you can see here is there's 2 pistons here and there's 2 pistons on the other side. So you have an even amount of pressure being applied to that brake pad on either side. So these are going to apply at the same time. They are going to have even pressure across the pads, which is going to give you a much better pedal feel and overall consistency in your braking. Okay, so really quickly I want to talk about these brake calipers and some of the hardware they come with, just so that no one's confused if you get them. They come with these 4 pads. If you look, there are 4 spots here where they clip into. So you can take a look, they kind of just clip in here like so, and then you push them down over top. So those are going to be included with the caliper, and they are going to be to keep the pads from vibrating against the caliper. Now let's talk about the way these pads mount in here, because it is a little unique, kind of different from most cars. Now the brake pads, as you can see there, they have these wings on them. There's a very weird kind of setup that they have, and you do have 2 different ones as far as inner and outer, because if you look, this one is set up for a spot for a sensor. Now what you're going to do is drop them in like so into your caliper. Once you drop these in, you're going to flip the caliper over, and we're going to take a look at the other side. Okay, so now we have this flipped over. You can see it comes with this spring. Now this spring, what it does is it locks in place. So what you do is push them up and slide this through and then latch it in place, and then essentially these pads are locked into this caliper, and then you can throw this caliper onto the vehicle. Now let's talk about models that this kit fits. So this kit fits pretty much any MQB or Mark 7 model that has aluminum steering knuckles. Now, not all of those vehicles will, but here's a brief list of how this upgrade would work. Essentially, you have 2 different kits that we're going to be offering. Technically 4, because there are color options of black or red, but there are 2 different parts kits as far as variety. So if you have a Golf R, Audi S3, or a performance package GTI that has the larger brake, which would be 340 millimeter in diameter rotors, which are these rotors, then you would not need to upgrade your rotors or need backing plates that we have shown here. This kit would be specifically for vehicles that are upgrading from smaller sizes, which would be a standard GTI brake package or some Audi A3s, as well as our Alltrack, which we have this kit on. The easiest way to identify if your vehicle, especially if you have a GTI, if you have the larger brakes, is if you have a plate on your caliper that says GTI on it, you have the larger versions. If not, you have the smaller version. So all GTIs have red calipers. The ones with that GTI plate on them are the performance package, or in later models called the sport package. The items on this side is what you would need if you were to have the larger brakes, meaning you have a Audi S3, a Golf R, or a performance package, sport package GTI with the upgraded brakes. If you have a GTI, an Alltrack, or an Audi A3 that has the smaller brakes, you would need all of the items here, rotors, and then the backing plates to go with it, as well as some other hardware that we include. One question I've seen for this kit is questioning if you need to upgrade the master cylinder vehicle. The master cylinder of the vehicle is actually part of the brake system, and the concern from a lot of people is that the master cylinder size of the pistons that push the fluid are not the appropriate size in proportion to these calipers and the pistons, since you have more of them, and then size-wise, as far as a concern between that. They actually use the same master cylinder between the TTS and all GTI, Golf R, all of these models all use the same master cylinder, so that is not a requirement for this upgrade, nor will there be any difference between yours. So we have this kit installed on our Alltrack, and a lot of questions that people are going to ask is, what do you need to do to make this all fit onto the vehicle? So this kit is complete bolt-on. There's no modifications required. A few things you do need, like lines, because the caliper banjo bolts are different than what you would find on the factory stuff. You will need to swap to different lines. Otherwise, this kit is complete bolt-on. We have this exact setup on our Alltrack, and so this is a complete plug and play. The only thing that you may not feel comfortable with, depending on your level of comfort with vehicles, is bleeding the brake system. So that is an important part of this. We do have a video about pressure bleeding stuff that we can link to as well, that we shot with Charles, the home mechanic. Now, depending on which wheels you have on your vehicle, this kit may require spacers. Now, a spacer would sit against the rotor and go between the rotor and the wheel to make it sit out further. Now, we offer a variety of spacers and flush kits for a lot of vehicles. A lot of them specifically MQB related, Mark 7, GTI, and Golf R, vary depending on the wheel as far as flush fitment, as far as meeting the wheels. We have found on most of the wheels we tested that they require a 10mm spacer. Now, we have not tested every wheel. We have tested both GTI wheels, the Austin, and the Milton wheel for the Mark 7 facelift GTI, as well as the Mark 7 Golf R ones, which would include the original KDIS wheel and the Pretoria. Those, as far as I know, and I haven't test fit the Golf R ones firsthand, but my understanding is those wheels require 10mm spacers as well. So the best rule of thumb that I would say is, if you have a factory wheel, you will require spacers, a 10mm spacer, to clear these calipers as far as out. Otherwise, the spoke design is what creates a problem, and it will end up hitting the edge of the caliper. Now, the aftermarket wheels are going to vary pretty greatly. The one thing I will say is pretty much all the new speed wheels have a mile of clearance behind them. So generally, none of the new speed wheels that we offer are going to require any spacers of any kind, and every other aftermarket wheel is going to kind of vary because the design is going to be different, where New Speed designs their stuff to be more track oriented for maximum clearance. Now, the other note that people are going to ask about wheel clearance is going to be diameter of wheel. Now, the main thing you're going to be worried about with diameter of wheel is clearing on the outside of the caliper here. So we've tested it with 18s for sure, are going to clear pretty much universally, 18s and up. 17s are probably going to vary depending on the wheel. The ones we've tested that we have on our Alltrack, this does have 17s on it that are factory VW and Audi 17s, which should clear. So we suspect pretty much any 17 should clear. Anything below 17 almost certainly will not clear. So any 17-inch wheel we believe you should be okay with, but I would recommend testing to verify overall fitment to make sure you clear the back side of the caliper. Okay, now let's talk about weight. So weight can be a big difference for overall performance of the vehicle. These calipers are going to be lighter than what you would find on any of the factory stuff that comes with these vehicles. So the GTI model has a weight of 11.7 pounds. The Golf R has a weight of 15.8 pounds, and these calipers have a weight of 9.8 pounds. Now, as you can see, the TTS brakes are lighter than all of those, even the much smaller version found on the GTI from the factory. Now, these rotors are going to be the option that we offer with them. You do have the option to go with the gyro disc version, which is a two-piece rotor, which would be lighter if you were looking to maximize weight savings. It does change the cost significantly, which is why we offer it with these first, and then you could always swap out from these to the gyro disc if you wanted to. Now let's talk about brake pad options. So the biggest concern we've had around these brakes is because they are very uncommon, there's not a lot of performance brake pad options. So we work with a company who's local to us. They are called G-Lock. They make brake pads for track cars. As a general rule, the guys who work there used to work at a place called Carbotech, which is pretty well known for track pads. Then they spun off to do their own thing. So we have a few versions of their pads that we offer with this. You could get the factory set of pads. These are their GS1 pads, which is their street pad. I have those in my Audi S3 that I drive on daily. This is going to be more of a sport pad, and then they have a track version, which we have in the Alltrack, that is a track pad. So depending on what your purpose is of these brakes, you may want to look at different sets of pads. The good thing about the track pads that you would find from G-Lock is that they're going to hold up to a lot higher temp heats than most of the track pads you would find through general people like EBC. So we do also know that EBC is working on pads for these, which we have on order. They are not available yet. So there will eventually be red stuff and yellow stuff pads for these. but they are not available at this time. They would be a more affordable option than these, which are going to be on the more expensive side for performance pads. There are other brands that we are aware of. I don't have any experience with. There is a company called iSweep. They make track pads for these brakes as well, which are somewhat popular and is something that we're looking at offering for these brakes as well. Thank you so much for watching our video on upgrading your car to the TTS brakes. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more like it. And click on the link below to buy these brakes. Maybe.